r/AskReddit Teachers of Reddit. What the worst thing that happened on a school trip? Not a teacher, but I just came back from a 1-week school trip to Belfast and I'm terribly ashamed for the guys in my school. One of them stole a bottle of whiskey from a distillery we visited, drank it almost entirely by himself while in the bus, then tried to pee on a car even though the toilets were like 30 meters away from him, failed and peed on himself. He also purposely peed on his bed and punched a mirror in the hotel later. The whole floor smelled like piss. Edit, typo. Not the teacher, but a student. We were on a school trip to Ontario. My school's in Alberta. We were in a hotel one night and we were allowed to go to the pool, rec room, etc. 2 students decided to stay in the pool past closing and were caught having S*X in the pool. The only reason they got caught is because the teachers went to each room when everyone was supposed to be back in our rooms and they were both missing. Was an awkward time the rest of the trip. I work at something similar to a boarding school for kids with disabilities, mainly visual impairments but usually with some other ailments. We took a trip to the beach for the end of the year celebration, and one of the students found a dead decaying fish and demanded that he keep it so he could stuff it when he got home. When we finally convinced him to throw it back in the ocean, he threw it at me. To be fair, I was standing towards the ocean but still EW. Obligatory. I'm not a teacher, but a couple of years before I started at my high school, 2 students who went there died while on a school trip, drowned, so that was the worst thing that could possibly ever happen. I don't think they ever did the trip again, and as far as I know my year group was the first after that to go on a residential school trip, and that was a couple of years later. Once my boss freaked up and we got to the airport late and we missed our flight. So 40 kids and 7 adults, and he refused to split our group up. We ended up having to stay an extra night. It was a nightmare since our bags made it and we didn't. Also had a student fall off the train platform and onto the tracks, breaking ribs and knocking herself out cold. She looked like a rag doll going down and I felt helpless just trying to keep the other kids calm. She was okay eventually. At the school I went to, they took a previous class to New York City, from WA State, and one of the girls decided she was going to run off with a boy she met there. They had her under close watch all night, but the next day she tried to hop off the subway at a different stop from the group to go meet up with her newfound love. They managed to stop her, but that night had to fly her home for fear that she would escape. She was 16. Not a teacher, but a school trip I was on, going to a theme park at the end of the year for the first years to celebrate completing their first year of high school. Me and my friends went on the pirate ride and a girl fell forward. She fell onto me and I managed to stop her falling further as the ride went to emergency stop, and she went home as the rest of us continued on for the day. Poor girl. Obligatory. Not a teacher, but when my econ class went to New York City for a field trip, one of my classmates tried to buy weed off a guy in an alleyway. Turned out to be an undercover cop. We were the honors class. He was a cool kid. I was walking to school in freezing weather one day and he offered me a ride. Don't remember what happened to him after that. I know he didn't graduate with us that year. Not a teacher, but I remember in 4th grade when my class went to a museum about ancient Egypt when one of the students freaked out and claimed that she saw a statue move, later found out it was a robot. This set off a wave of hysteria among my classmates as we believed that we were going to get roped into one of those Indiana Jones movies. Needless to say, we were all kicked out and we had to write a letter detailing why we acted the way we did. Best field trip ever. It happened right before we would enter the bus. My students had been waiting for a few minutes and some guys were messing around. I warned them to act normal but left them out of my sight for 1 minute to grab something from my postbox. In that time they pressed the fire alarm. The whole school, 1650 students, had to be evacuated to the car park where the bus also waited. It was not my favorite morning. I went on a class trip as chaperone to a science center. I was in charge of a group of 8 boys. One of them goes missing. I ask the others where he went, and they don't know either. He's missing for about 10 minutes until a security guard from the center comes up to me with him. The guy asks, "Is he one of yours?" and tells this kid to open his backpack when I say yes. Probably $200 worth of stolen stuff in there. He spent the rest of the trip right next to me. I took my 4th graders to a farm a couple years ago and they got to see the tractors. Most kids were baffled when the tour guide said a particular machine was worth $2 million. Another kid decided to kick and throw rocks at this machine. We had a nice conversation about respect after that. I haven't been a teacher for long, so I know worse things will happen in my future days. Not a teacher, but I had a school trip from hell when I was 12. My school went to France and I had no friends on the trip. My brother convinced other students to bully me and eventually persuaded my group to abandon me in the middle of Disneyland. No teacher would pick up the phone and I resorted to calling my mom, who called the school. No one on that trip, including my twin brother, has ever apologized. My 15-year-old stepsister was caught giving a guy a blowjob on the bus back from their ski trip. Catholic school, they both got asked to leave. She moved to a local public high school and was known as Blowjob Girl. Side note, 2 years later my bio dad and stepmom split up. I'm back living with my mom, in a different town, 4 HRS away, and a new kid starts at the school and he was telling the story of Blowjob Girl in at-home EC class. Not a teacher, it happened to me. In the 6th grade my class went on a trip to Chinatown. We got to ride the train downtown. First stop was a Chinese buffet. There was this fried squid that looked gross and some kids dared me to eat it. It was pretty gross. The next stop was a Chinese cultural center. My stomach was grumbly. Next thing I knew I was throwing up everywhere and I couldn't stop. I wasn't able to home, so the rest of the day I was covered in vomit. A girl on a beta club trip thought it would be funny to put bomb on board in the window of the bus. The interstate was shut down, the bus was pulled over and SWAT team raided the bus. The bomb squad was called in to sweep the bus even though the girl admitted it was a hoax. She didn't go to jail somehow. She was also a popular cheerleader and didn't get any disciplinary action from the school. Once took the Model UN Club out on a trip. All girls for some reason. The other teacher took the girls in while I waited outside for the stragglers. When I come into the building I see the whole group walk in a door and catch up with them. Turns out that door was the entrance to the girls' bathroom. I am a guy. Managed to stop myself about a foot in when I realized and avoided a major debacle. Lol. Waterfall, behind it is a deep cave that goes down who knows how many feet, students swimming in the waterfall, students falling up behind the waterfall, students dying. You can see it in the news, I think, too lazy to search. Not a teacher by the way, but it's one of the most fricked up things to happen in a school trip that I've seen. This is just irresponsible ick, and that's why school/field trips was banned in the Philippines. Student here, on my 8th grade trip the weird guy was masturbating in the back of the school bus. He asked if someone could help him out, so another guy gave him a hand job. In public. The girls and teachers were in the front of the bus so no one found out except for the other guys. The same guy also told me he was regularly having sex with his cat. Pretty traumatizing moment for me as someone who's been relatively sheltered all his life. Not a teacher, but in 6th grade I fell at the peak of our hiking trip during a camping thing that was supposed to last a week and had to go all the way down only a few days after getting there. I fell on an old rusty signpost that was just cut till an inch or so was peeking out of the ground. We ended up walking back to camp with my hand bleeding down my arm, miles from Society Lmao. Went to medical cabin and they told us to just drive to the nearest hospital or call an ambulance. I'm not a teacher, but I went on this one. It was a geography excursion to a reserve hour where we'd learn about how it all worked, and the impacts of it on the surrounding mountains and pond life. Everyone was extremely disrespectful and uninterested in what the guides were talking about. But the worst part was that the popular group vandalized a memorial to the 100 or so people who died in a bushfire there. My cousin is a kindergarten teacher. Some of the parents are what most would call helicopter parents, and these kids literally kick her and do other shat. On a field trip to a museum, one kid pulled another woman's skirt down. It didn't come down full, but the woman screamed like anything, and my cousin was in charge of 40 students. Bloody mismanagement. So then she screamed at the boy, and later those parents had her suspended. WTF. Thanks for watching this auto-generated video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I upload videos like this one daily. I put a lot of time into developing this video generator, but if there have been errors, please tell me in the comments below. Also leave me a link to another thread you would like to see a video about. Have a great day, Alex.